Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I wanted to do my yearly Destiny 2 Summer State of the Game. It seems to happen all the time. Every single year since Destiny has been around, there have been a bunch of people in the community up in arms about where the game stands in the summer. There's a lot of gripes, and some of them are perfectly understandable, but there's also a lot of misconceptions out there, and things that I think people will put forward as fact, but are really just how they personally feel, and they take anecdotal evidence instead of using actual statistics or anything like that. And one of the key parts of that is the player base, right? So everyone's saying that the player base is dying off, it's struggling, etc. You see that all over the place. And yet, on Steam, the average concurrent player count per day is higher in May and June than it's ever been on Steam in Destiny's history, Destiny 2's history. So Destiny 1 wasn't on Steam, but Destiny 2, since it's come to PC, it's the highest May and June we've ever seen, despite it being a season that not everyone loves, and including the end of last season, which everybody apparently was upset about Lightfall. Everyone didn't enjoy Season of the Deep or a Season of Defiance, and it was such a poorly received season by the wider community, and yet the player count is still remaining strong from what we normally see. And so that's very interesting to me. As we head in the summer, a lot of people every single year, I've posted about this on Twitter, where every single year people will have the same complaints. It's a dry period, it's this and that. That's going to happen. No game can have year-round content consistently coming out that is going to keep you engaged 365 year in and year out. Like for 1 year, 2 years maybe, but now 5 heading in 6 years deep, it's just not going to happen. Everyone's comparing it to Diablo 4. That game is brand new. You're going to have differences, and also it's a top-down ARPG compared to a first-person shooter. And there's just massive differences in how the game is approached. So I don't think you can really compare the two. I'm playing Diablo 4. I'm loving Diablo 4. I'm excited about the future of Diablo 4. But it's just not comparable to Destiny, in my opinion. And if you look around at other looter shooters, Destiny has been around longer than pretty much all of them. Maybe Warframe is the only one that can compete. And by and large, the player count has been better in Destiny than it has in any other of these games. So it's just weird to see. Now, there are some changes that I think have affected some things in general, right? Like the removal of the increase to the pinnacle cap had some adverse effects that I think people weren't realizing. I think a system needs to be in place to encourage people to log in every week and play the game. Some will say, oh, well, I just want to log in once, play the campaign, and that's it. But again, that's going to diminish the daily player count that everyone was talking about. So Destiny does a good job of keeping people around week in and week out. But with the with the removal of the pinnacle cap, now we see there's not really a reason. Chasing exotics is not bad. Like everyone can use some additional exotic armor chances, but it's just not the same as having that increased pinnacle cap, seeing your power go up. And I think it had some unintended consequences of people not wanting to do your playlist activities, your strikes, your gambit, and your crucible. And so that's going to make the game feel worse at times because the matchmaking is longer, or not as many of your friends are hopping in and all that kind of good stuff. That being said, again, with the player counts being what they are, that shouldn't really be much of an issue. It's just anecdotal, like I said, because of how your playlist, your friends list looks compared to how the wider audience is playing. If you're somebody who is on Twitter, in Discords, and all that stuff, you're going to be more connected and playing oftentimes with other people who are like you. You might not have as many friends who just log in every day, play. They maybe have a small friend group. They don't go on Twitter, Discord, or anything like that to find the newest information. And so you see it in the gameplay. You see it with people who play Gambit and don't really understand how to play the Gambit. Play Gambit most efficiently. You see it with deep dives this season where folks are not understanding how to invoke the darkness and get additional rewards. There's not everyone is going to be super tapped in. So you got to keep that in mind when you're talking about the player base in general. The future of the game, I think, is going to be very interesting. People forget that things are going to change dramatically after the final shape. I feel like they're clinging to like last generation PS4 because they want to see everybody through this light and dark saga, get them through the final shape before they can proceed forward and make more drastic improvements to the game overall. They want everyone to experience that first. Get in, play the new expansion, have fun with that, and really that will probably be a send off to Destiny 2 as we know it, and then we're going to see more radical changes. But I doubt they wanted to make radical changes and risk alienating some of the player base before this massive final DLC, final expansion in this light versus dark saga. So whether we see them completely dropping support for PS4 and Xbox One, or if they just kind of keep the game running for them, but only the next gen and PC is going to get the new content so they can innovate more, they can expand, they can use new technologies, they can improve the engine, all of that kind of good stuff. I will be fascinated to see if that is the case. They haven't confirmed anything, but I would imagine that is coming in the not too distant future. Same thing with the way they do stories, right? Is all of these seasons are going to be seasons connected to the final shape. You need to build up for a year, actually more than a year they're building up, but every seasonal story is connecting. We're learning more, we're figuring out what's going on, we have more momentum towards the final shape, and then we're going to have this big ultimate expansion, and then after that I would imagine they'll go back to more standalone expansions and updates and stuff like that. We're not going to have the singular big enemy, singular big event that we're all pushing for, and that's going to lead a lot of the content to be more varied. And I do think there's a lot of room for improvement with some of the content. PvP, we know, has been struggling for a while. I do think I enjoy PvP as a casual kind of enjoyer. I play it pretty consistently, but I'm not like a hardcore, fully invested PvP player. I like making wonky builds and having fun with different types of content, but I also don't stress about PvP too much. I know there's a lot of dedicated PvP players who are frustrated. We have gotten more PvP stuff lately. We've gotten more maps than we had in years. We got more types of game modes in PvP than we've gotten in years. It hasn't been enough. I know the sandbox is still a point of frustration, but I think it always has been and always will be. Even in Destiny 1, we had things like self-res, we had No Land Beyond, we had things that were outliers that were actually... We had Icebreaker was an absolute menace for a while in Destiny 2 PvP. So there's always been pain points, and some are worse than others, but I think it's going to be a consistent problem through the end of Destiny 2 as we continue to have a mixed sandbox of PvE and PvP. It's just the way it is. And you want to kind of balance that too, because you want to feel like you can take the stuff that you earn in PvE, use it in PvP, and vice versa. That's what Destiny 2 tries to do, and there's no way to get that perfectly balanced in my personal opinion. Then we've got some other things like the types of content. I think as much as I've enjoyed having a raid, new raid, a returning raid, and then 2 new dungeons every single year, I would rather them go away from that formula and innovate more. I love dungeons. They're some of my favorite types of content, but I would love one dungeon and one horde mode, one new raid, and another piece of content instead of a returning raid, in my opinion, would be better. Whether, like I said, a horde mode, some kind of 12-man activity, something crazy to really push Destiny forward and do something different with the game that we have not seen. The lack of innovation is the biggest pain point for me personally in the game, and I understand why. I think we're waiting until the final shape. If they don't innovate more after the final shape, I'll look back and say I was wrong. I will fully understand that. However, for me, I want them to innovate. I want them to do new, fresh things. And you look at some of the games. You look at world bosses being a potential thing. You look at these Legion events in Diablo 4, where you get a bunch of people kind of rushing to an area, really good rewards, high level activities, maybe with some scaling enemies, something like that. Anything that could provide a unique, different kind of experience would be something I would love to see within Destiny 2, and I'm hopeful that we'll get that in the future. Other than that, I think the game is actually in a pretty decent spot. I do think they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with the pinnacle system. I do think that removing it completely was probably not the right call, but I understand why they did because people have been asking for it for so long. I think the seasonal model needs to be updated a little bit as well. However, I do think the reasons that they have the seasonal model as it is, with people returning each and every week to log in, to keep playing, to play different activities. Most people won't just log in and play the new seasonal thing. They'll play that. They'll play a couple games of Crucible or Strikes or the seasonal activity. They'll do a bunch of stuff, and that's why they continue to do this weekly story pacing, which again I know frustrates people, but is smart to me, and it makes a lot of sense even if people don't like it. Not everybody likes it. I think I like it personally. It's like a TV show. I know I can come back every week and see my thing that I really enjoy, and there's going to be something new, which I always look forward to, instead of my favorite thing having 3 weeks between when I see something and then not seeing any further updates. I think people forget that when we had just the expansions and no seasons, we would go months with no new content in Destiny 2. It was terrible. It was way worse than it is now, and I think people just forget that. But anyway, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. I know this was a bit of a rambling one, a lot going on within the Destiny 2 community, but let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think about where Destiny 2 is right now? What would you like to see it do in the future? And are you content with where we are heading into the final shape? My name is Jopa. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button if you did. Subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously. I'm going to continue posting Destiny 2 content consistently. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.